Next, from Springfield, we attend a press conference in favor of passing Senate Bill 261, which would provide more control for the disabled needing home care to choose their home care provider and the number of hours the provider may work. This runs about 40 minutes.
Hello, and welcome to everyone joining us here today. My name is Lily Cleeton, and today I'm here as a mother, a caregiver, and an advocate to call on Governor Bruce Rauner to sign Senate Bill 261, legislation that passed through the General Assembly aimed at stopping the terrible DHS overtime policy. I'm joined here today by my son, K.L. Cleeton, whom my husband and I care for around the clock so he can remain living in our home in the Effingham community where he wants to be. Senator Sam McCain had planned to be here today too, but had a last-minute scheduling conflict come up. We wish he was here, but we also want to say that we are so thankful for his leadership and commitment to this issue. There is so much at stake for families like ours, and it means so much to see lawmakers on both sides of the aisle standing up for us. Our son, Kenneth Lloyd Cleeton II, known as KL to all families and friends, was born July 25, 1989. Approximately 6 months later, after being diagnosed with a neurological disease called spinal muscular atrophy, the doctors told us that our son would not live to be 3 years old. On that day, our lives changed forever. But KL's disability has not pushed us apart. It's done just the opposite. It has drawn us together and bonded us closer than anyone could ever imagine. My husband and I care for our son 24/7. We both gave up careers to become KL's full-time caregivers so he would never have to go into a nursing home facility, and the Home Services program has enabled us to do this. It's a vitally important program for people like our son, and we are eternally grateful for it, just as taxpayers should be, because it saves hundreds of millions of dollars every year by avoiding institutional care. Living with a disability is hard enough in and of itself, without having to fight for the right to choose who actually does your caretaking. We have invited Governor Rauner to walk a day in our shoes, and will once again extend this invitation to him. Unfortunately, this year has been one of the most tumultuous for our family, plagued with uncertainty about the future due to the DHS overtime policy. We have spoken out against the policy from the start, along with thousands of others all over Illinois. Our advocacy, firsthand accounts of harm, and pleading with the DHS and Rauner administration has fallen on deaf ears for the last 11 months, though. It was precisely this shutting out of stakeholders that led to Senate Bill 261. You see, legislative action was absolutely necessary when a DHS spokesperson actually referred to their policy as perfect, despite receiving hundreds of public comments to the contrary. Last week, just as the Illinois House was preparing to take up SB 261, DHS started communicating out details about their new overtime rules. It was only the threat of legislation that pushed them to even recognize the dangerous flaws that existed in their own previous policy. While we are happy to hear that DHS has made some improvements to their policy, it still falls short on protecting consumer rights and control, a pillar of the Home Services program. Even under the revised overtime policy, my son is still being told by the state that he must hire additional caregivers. Still, under the policy, my husband and I are threatened with suspension or termination if we work all the hours that our son has in his care plan and requires to live healthily and safely in our home. Living with a disability is hard enough in and of itself.
I'm sorry. I need to pause for a moment. Can I get a sip of water, please?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Sorry, guys. That was embarrassing. That's what we do.
Sorry about that, but that's just a part of our lives. There are still thousands of people with disabilities whose independence is threatened under this policy, and once individuals who cannot comply are forced into nursing homes, the minor cost savings that will be completely negated. For all these reasons and more, I am asking, no, I am pleading with Governor Rauner to sign Senate Bill 261 and to end the chaos, confusion, and uncertainty that families like ours have had to live under this entire year. Now, I'd like to introduce my son, K.L. Cleaton.
Sorry about that, everyone. I've had a little tickle. There we go. Hello, as my mother mentioned, my name is K.L. Cleaton, and I'm a 27-year-old person, obviously living with a disability, and I'm from Effingham, just south of here. As was mentioned, I was born with a neuromuscular condition called spinal muscular atrophy, generally called SNA. It's part of the muscular dystrophy family of disorders. Basically, the best way to understand my disability is something like being completely paralyzed from the neck down, but with total and complete feeling, meaning you can hurt me. So because of this, I require 24-hour assistance for literally every aspect of my life, from scratching my nose to using the restroom and personal care like showers and so on. The level of care I require would not be possible without the DHS Home Service Program. This program is the reason I'm able to maintain my independence. Because I'm able to because I'm able to choose who cares for me. The people who know me better than anyone in the world ever possibly could, my parents, I'm able to remain at home and receive that best possible care. Because of this, I've graduated from the University of Illinois, I became an entrepreneur, and I run my own small business. All of my needs are met, and I know that I'm receiving the support necessary for me to succeed. Because my parents are always right there. They always had my back. It's truly one of the most comforting thoughts in the world to know that someone is always there, absolutely looking out for my best interests. But all of this is threatened by Governor Rauner's DHS overtime policy, even after these so-called improvements to the overtime rule. And that's why I'm here, again. At the very root of these apparent improvements is still the basic, fundamental fact that the state is telling individuals with disabilities that the more disabled you are, i.e. the more hours you require to live independently at home, the more dispensable you are. These changes aren't based in any real effort to improve the lives of people with the most severe disabilities, people like myself. This is why I want to thank people like Senator Sam McCann for stepping up and supporting Senate Bill 261, and by doing so, affirming to people like me, people with disabilities, that we do matter. Listen, when we get right down to it, this is all about choice. It's about the freedom of choice for people like me, people with disabilities, severe disabilities, to choose who we want to care for us, the people we're most comfortable with, not because it's in the best interest of our health or our personal well-being or our safety. Not only because of those things, but because we know that these people, people like my parents, are the ones who give us the best chance to succeed and reach our true God-given potential. To graduate from the University of Illinois, to be an entrepreneur, to start my own business, to run for office maybe. My voice is not alone in this. I'm joined by individuals with disabilities and their caregivers from all over the state in demanding that the governor sign Senate Bill 261 in every possible respect. It is the right thing to do. Thank you. If there's anybody that has any questions for any of us, we'd be happy to take them.
Do you feel if you were cared for in a state institution, you wouldn't get the level of care you need?
Oh, absolutely. The state institution, even if it's a nursing home, you don't require individual one-on-one care. Let's say you have an itch, and you can't press the call button because you don't have the strength to do that, which I can't. I don't have the ability to push a nurse's button. And someone is at the nurse's station 30 feet away from your door, and you're in your bed. If you have an itch, you're kind of SOL. You can't scratch your nose. And that's, I mean, to me, you know, if you really want to talk about borderline torture, it's talk about an itch that you can't scratch. You know, really, really bad one. You got a hair tickling your nose. That's almost as bad as actually living in pain, which I also do.
And Mom, how does this work for those who don't know? Are you compensated currently by the state? How much income do you have? How much income would you lose if the DHS plan goes through?
Yes, we are compensated through the state. We are paid, we have the union, and we all get paid the exact same thing, all PAs, and it's $13 an hour. They are actually in the process of negotiating the new bargaining for our new contract, but that's been going on for 2 years now.
Can I ask, when you say 13 an hour, in your household, are you both paid, so the state is paying $26 an hour? Or are you paying $13 an hour and take shifts?
We take shifts.
And then, but under the new rules, you would, when you get time and a half, I suppose, so you go up to $20 an hour at some point. But under the new rules, you wouldn't get that $20 an hour, is that correct?
That's correct.
Have you run the numbers to say how much would this cost you as a household? Is it the overtime pay that is the nub of your disagreement with the governor, or are there other issues?
No, actually, the problem is the amount of hours that he requires. The amount of hours he requires is 24/7. We do that. We do not get paid for all that, which is fine, and we understand. That would be basically being in an institution of some sort. It is actually cheaper to keep him at home and pay us to take care of him these hours. He gets 500 hours a month, and those hours are split up. So that's, I mean, that would be between the two of us 80 hours a week times 4 weeks. It's not even close to the 500 hours, so they wouldn't be covered. We have tried having other people take care of him. One time, one cracked his leg, didn't break it completely, but it was cracked. He's choked a couple times, and we were there, thank God, still, or he wouldn't be here. There's been numerous things that happen that you just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. He has trouble swallowing. You have to turn his head. He does not ever eat in public because of things like this. There's a lot more to taking care of him than just hanging out with them and being there to scratch that itch, which that is very important.
Have you run the numbers to say if he was cared for at an institution, aside from the quality of care differential, what would the state have to pay in a institution versus what they're paying you?
Caitlin might be able to answer that better than I can.
I can't speak to KL's specific example. He does require a high level of care, but on average, nursing home care costs about 3 to 4 times more than having a home care provider provide those services in the home. It's 3 to 4 times more. It depends on the individual case, but if you're talking about the number of hours that a PA is going to be working versus the amount that it costs to have an individual in a nursing home day to day, it's about 3 to 4 times more. I can probably get you a number afterwards, an exact amount. I don't have it off the top of my head.
And if I might add, just really quickly, in the end, this isn't really about the overtime pay. This is, for me, personally, this is because there's a limit on the hours that my parents can work, because there's a hard limit under this policy. That means that we're forced to bring in additional people if I'm to use those hours. Which if I don't, then they get taken when I need them. And if I do use them with an additional person, as was mentioned, something very bad can happen. So what it comes down to is the state telling me I need to bring in someone I don't trust, someone that I'm not fully comfortable with, someone who doesn't have 27 years of on-the-job training already to manage a situation if it comes up. The best way to describe it is my parents are kind of like the fire department. I may not need them every second of every day, but when I need them, I want trained professionals who know how to do the job, not just some Joe Blow off the street. And that's what this comes down to. The choice for me to pick who cares for me.
The actual savings, I know you're wanting numbers, and I can't give you that just because
Well,
I don't.
Because isn't the governor's office, isn't this based on an economic issue is what
Yes,
they're
that
arguing
is, that is. We do have an exceptional amount of hours just because of the amount that he needs. But if you cut it down in the long run, what it's actually saving the state is like less than 1%, isn't it?
Yeah, so we actually, everyone is still analyzing these new rules that, DHS did kind of start communicating out late last week. And from our calculations so far, the cost savings from this specific new policy, we're looking at if even 182 individuals are forced into an institution or nursing home setting, that completely negates the cost savings. We also know that if we left, no overtime policy, so if there was no policy in place, the amount of money we're talking about is 0.02% of the overall state budget to cover the cost of leaving overtime hours as they are, so that folks like KL can get the care they need from the people of their choice.
Do you know in dollars and cents what 0.02% of the state budget is?
Not off the top of my head, but I would love to send that to you.
Obviously, his situation is not representative of everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think no one would look at a situation of the parent situation and not have tremendous sympathy for them.
Certainly.
On the larger issue, what kind of hours of care do people need? Can we cut back on some of those? Maybe we need a carve-out for people on those extreme cases where you have a 24/7 situation, but that the argument might be made that that's not representative of the whole. When we have a state that is, for all practical purposes, bankrupt, and an administration is trying to make some cost savings where they can. Is there a fair discussion to be had there?
I think one of our main points all along throughout this process has been, let's sit down and talk about this. Stakeholders had been shut out of this process. up until late last week when we saw this new policy come out. There are still a large number of individuals who are going to be left out, like the Cletons here. We would like to see moving forward discussion and negotiation over how we can ensure people are not allowed to fall through the cracks under any policy. And I think I would go back to just highlight, we're talking about these short-term cost savings that could ultimately cost our state a lot more in the long run if we are moving people out of community-based care and back into institutional care. So, not only is it the wrong thing to do for, I think, a human being, I don't think we want to live in a state that's going to be forcing individuals against their will into institutions. It's also not the right financial thing to do because it costs a lot more to keep someone in a nursing home and provide that care.
And if I might add, if you don't mind. Of course. You mentioned that my case is quite extreme, but you're right. However, it's important to note that a lot of the people that are like me that have severe disabilities don't have the ability to travel here to Springfield to let their voice be heard. And so my voice, while I'm only one person, I do represent many, many individuals with severe disabilities that do live in their home with exceptional care and from their parents or trusted friends, whoever they choose, that are in very similar circumstances. So I want to make it clear that my case, while is kind of exceptional, it also does represent people who really are hurting. I'm just the one who's able to sit up here and speak to you and convey the story that many people across the state aren't able to come here and convey.
Can I ask you, would you say who you are and who you're with, number
Yes.
one?
Yeah, my name is Caitlin DeCero. I'm with the Service Employees International Union. We are the union that represents the personal assistants like Lily who work in this program.
Spell your name.
Yeah, it's Caitlin, Kaitlin. DeCero is DE, capital CERO. And my contact information is right at the top of that advisory.
Now, Caitlin,
Yes.
are there classifications of disabilities so that we might say in this instance it's a level 1 and we would go down to 2, 3, I don't know if there's classifications. It would seem to me that might be a thing to do, and that we carve out a section for class 1 as an exceptional case
Sure.
because of the arguments we've heard, that when you need someone, you're just not going to get the level of care in an institution.
Sure.
I don't think anyone would think you would.
Right.
That you're going to get from your parents. But that perhaps we can have our cake and eat it too as a state if we said, we can have some cost savings at a level 3 or 4, but let's not take it out and treat everyone as if they're equally disabled when they're not.
Correct. And so, what this is each individual in the home services program is evaluated by the department, and they are awarded a care plan. And so that care plan actually determines how many hours an individual is going to get services. So, Lily talked about KL's care plan earlier, how many hours were contained in that. There's a wide range of care plans all over the state for individuals, and it's kind of like a classification as what you're talking about based upon their level of need. It's actually, they get a score. It's called a DON score, a determination of need score. I think the more that the administration and DHS will engage with stakeholders, come out and see the firsthand stories of folks like the Cletons who have been really having a really difficult year under all this back and forth under this policy, I think we could move forward with something that, we can all live with. And I just want to reiterate that this program saves our state hundreds of millions of dollars every year. This is a program that, has never... It's always been supported in a bipartisan fashion by both sides of the aisle because there is such cost savings, and it's the right thing to do for Illinoisans with disabilities.
Speaking of that, as we don't have a budget and the funding bill is going to run out without a new one, what happens to the caregivers relative to being compensated if we come to January, no bill is agreed to?
So SEIU members are covered under collective bargaining agreements, and so similar to state workers, they are continuing to get paid. When we've had these lapses in the past, they have continued to get paid as well. That's correct. She's an SEIU member as a personal assistant. We would anticipate that to continue. Of course, there are a lot of ramifications across our communities when we continue without a budget. However, it touches places like Centers for Independent Living that, support people with disabilities in our communities and enable them to stay and keep living there with the resources they need. So on this particular issue for caregivers like Lily, we expect them to continue to get paid, but the deep ramifications of our state continuing without a budget cannot be ignored.
And just to kind of add a bullet to that as well, I just want to publicly say that if it weren't for places like the union, actually talking to people like me and people from Centers of Independent Living and other disability advocacy groups around the state, we probably wouldn't have a voice in this because individuals with disabilities aren't well represented when you talk about things like lobbying and things like that, at least not generally. You can make arguments for certain subsections, but as a general rule, I would say we're not all that well represented. And so I'm, for one, and deeply just overwhelmed with gratitude for people like Caitlin and SEIU coming forward and saying, no, this is not a good way to go about making this policy. And as Caitlin has made the point over and over again, this all could have been avoided, as you mentioned, just by talking to us and seeing what was going on in our lives and seeing how these rule changes would impact people like me. But we were never, spoken to. Nobody ever sent a letter saying, hey, these are some things we'd like to do. Fill out a questionnaire or call a number. Nothing like that. We were only told that in a letter, and then all of us were sitting there with shocked faces. And so I just wanted to publicly say thank you to SEIU and Centers of Independent Living from all over the state, but some of them are back there behind you guys, and thank them for their support in this.
Mom, last question. Can you talk a bit about what your life is like? You say you can't get people to come in. Financially, do you have enough to get by on with what you currently are getting? Two, just what is your life like? Occasionally couples want to go out to dinner together or go out to a movie. Can you just kind of bring us into your world?
That's hard to do in just a little bit amount of time. But since he was diagnosed at 6 months and we were told he would not live to be 3 years old, our life has been completely different. We tried to pack a whole lot of time we have a younger son also, a whole lot of life into a small amount of time. Then he made it to 10 years old. We hit double digits. We were super excited. Then he made it through high school. No, we don't just go out to dinner and have a date, my husband and I. We haven't. We've probably had 3 vacations where we've spent more than one night away from KL his whole life. But that's okay. That's our life, and that's what we live. We could whine and we could cry about all that we have missed out on. Our other son has not had, he kind of got pushed to the side for a long time. There were many, many times that KL should not have made it out of the hospital. But God had a different plan. So he is here with us. Yes, our lives are. That's why I said having a disability is enough to deal with, let alone having to fight for every little thing that you get. No, I don't want to be handed money. I don't want you just to give me money because I have a handicapped son. I work for my son. He is a very intelligent young man. He has gone through a lot more than most people. He has come out on top most every time. We have always treated him just as much like a normal kid as we possibly could. We've tried different jobs outside the home, but that in itself is very exhausting and actually caused me a lot of physical pain. I have a lot of medical things going on because of it, because mostly of the stress and everything that went along with dealing with his disability and thinking that my son was going to die anytime. This program has been a godsend for us because it has allowed us to have our job, which he is our job, and allowed us to know that he's safe and being taken care of. We don't go out and go to business meetings every day, and we don't have jobs outside the home like that. But our job is right there. And I think simply because we have been able to have this job, he's still here. He's still alive because of it. I could tell you numerous stories of just last year. He actually died in the hospital. They brought him back. It was very instant, wasn't even for anything that he went in the hospital for. But because my husband and I were right there with him, we seen it happening, we were able to get the help that we needed. He's here. Do I think that, do I know all the numbers behind all of this, all the overtime pay, how much is being paid out, and is it really going to save money? Yeah, it's really going to save money. Because you're not going to have to pay for me to get more medical care because I'm trying to work outside the home, trying to make a living and keep our household going, and trying to take care of my son and know that somebody else is taking care of my son. Is he going to be okay when I get home? It's very hard, and I won't say it's not, but it's very worth it. And if you have a child at all, and you've ever had a child that's been sick with anything, then you know you're the one that needs to be there for that child. You, your wife, your husband, whoever. That child needs those people that they trust to take care of them. That's what this is about. It's not going to save the state enough money to compensate for that.
And also, I just want to point this out. I run a business. I have a production company. My degree is in advertising. I have a minor in political science, and I have 10 years of experience producing videos, short films, corporate documentaries, anything you can imagine. If I was in an institution, there's no way in the world I could contribute to society and do those things living in an institution. It's not possible. You can't have a business meeting in a
nursing home.
Yeah, a nursing home. You can't. You don't have somebody there to drive you to an office for a conference room. Those things don't exist. My parents do, though. My parents are the reason that I'm able to contribute to this thing we call society. And that is really important to me because a lot of people don't get the chance to do that, especially people with disabilities. People with severe disabilities oftentimes get pushed to the edge. My parents have made it their life's work to make sure that I'm not pushed to the edge, to make sure that I'm included, and to make sure that I myself push to be included and push other people to recognize me as a whole person and a person who has something to give back to the world. And those are things that I value greatly. because I truly believe that people have an obligation to do, to contribute, to be a positive member of their community, to give back to charity, which I do whenever I can. We don't have money, but like I said, I run a video production company, and it's my great pleasure to be able to offer services to people that do all sorts of charitable outreach. It's truly my belief that people have an obligation to do. And every moment of my adult life and even my teenage life has been dedicated to that thought. You can ask my high school teachers. I was very outspoken. Some might not think about that too fondly, and they have been a little too combative to some of the ideas. But I think in the end, it's that openness and freedom of thought instilled by my parents that has made me who I am today. And that's why I'm here, because I've been taught and told that your voice matters, and because you physically can speak, you have an obligation to speak out on behalf of those who can't. And so that's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you.